Everyone's back with a new video, continuing on with this theme of how is AI being used to transform recruiting and talent acquisition? What can we do in order to make the process more efficient? I'm excited to dive into the Apps SDK, which is the software development kit from OpenAI that's going to let anyone build an app that sits within ChatGPT. In the past few years, you've seen a lot of HR companies bring in different types of generative AI to help enhance their products. What we're seeing now moving forward is these native apps that are going to sit within the chat interface. I am a big fan of ChatGPT, but you can use whichever one you're most comfortable with. And what I want to walk through today is a quick demo I did on how an applicant tracking system and ATS may actually work in this new environment and how you might see that kind of play out over time. So we'll jump straight across, and you can see here I'm in developer mode. I have all this running on a local server on my desktop. This is really just to speed things up. I think this would be very easy to put something into production. And the idea here is instead of having a standalone app that you need to log into and kind of run everything through, you actually have this built into the ChatGPT interface where you can interact with your requisition pipelines or whatever you're doing within your ATS. And it would help to bounce across hiring manager interactions. It helps recruiters just to kind of like move things forward very quickly. And if you think about a suite of tools that come together, that's not limited to one tab for your email, you can actually kind of pour this into just a single interface like ChatGPT and actually have the interface do a lot of the work for you. So I'm going to demo it here. It's going to be a very quick one, just to show you the capabilities and the power behind this. For context, this took me about 30 minutes to vibe code together using the Apps SDK documentation. So it's very quick to understand. I think in a 2-week sprint, you could probably build something that would be pretty effective that could be used to, especially at small scales, actually manage a whole hiring process for a growing startup. So let's go into the app here. You can see the app is ATS Demo. You can see it's a little dev. This is not published live. There are still some bugs within it, but it's kind of good enough for me to show you how it works. So let's have a look at our current pipeline and so what we're going to do here is going to try and speed things up by using instant. So I'm going to do a whole lot of deep thought, but what we're going to do is actually start to look at this simple app that I've developed and see kind of how things are kind of progressing with our current hiring process. So you can see here's the mini ATS cockpit, and we've got 3 recs, 2 recs open, 1 on hold right now. See this, we're getting some metrics in here. This is based on how I've built it, which is kind of more focused on structured hiring. But I think what's really helpful here is you can kind of get a read based on what's going on. I think what we're going to do here is actually deep dive into one of these requisitions. I'm going to show you a little bit more about how it's working. So we've got engineering, sales, and data analytics. Show me the sales. And what this is going to do is actually go into that requisition and give me a readout of the candidates that are currently in process. As you see, it's getting very quick because this is essentially replacing what would normally be a browser front end. And it's actually just running everything through a native ChatGPT app. And so we can see here, this is our account executive mid-market role. This is the one role that we've got active right now. 3 candidates in the pipeline. 1 is applied, 1 is offer, 1 is a phone screen. And you can see we have our structured hiring playbook. This is, obviously if you're running structured hiring, you know about all this, but these are all the kind of steps in the process, different scorecard attributes and interview plans and everything else. So everything is already built in. We know that this is all set up appropriately. But I think what's helpful again is that because this is built into ChatGPT, you're using 5.2 to analyze the data that you're getting through immediately. And it's going to give you that kind of readout. So Casey is newly applied. Robin's been sitting in the phone screen since January 12th, and Alex hasn't been touched since January 18th. So things are set up, but it gives you next steps immediately. So instead of trying to review a big pipeline, and this is only 3 candidates, but you imagine if you have 500 candidates in a pipeline, you can actually start to kind of cycle things through very quickly and use the power of ChatGPT and the Gen AI models in there to kind of get decisions much faster. So let's say we need a yes or no from Alex, make a decision on Robin, start sourcing lightly. So the sourcing thing is probably not something we're going to do in ChatGPT, at least not at this stage with the tool sets that we have. Decision on Robin could be something that we want to dig into straight away. Assume we've just run the phone screen, and what we want to do is now have the debrief. So let's run the debrief for Robin. And what we're going to do hopefully now is, this is all live, so anything could break. But now what I'm hoping that we'll do is actually go through the process for assessing Robin's candidacy for the role. So we're going to add notes here, and then we'll see what happens here. Debriefs now logs. Here's the straight. Robin closed the baseline, have real mid-market exposure. Okay, so I guess this took in a feedback form that had already been analyzed. Robin's mixed pipeline management, but consultative storytelling is below the bar. So it's optionally not a front runner. So the decision here that's recommending is we should only move forward with Robin if Alex doesn't accept or is showing a lot of hesitation. So you can see the status of this pipeline right now. In order to make a decision on what to do with Robin, we should really get a decision from Alex. Generally, if you're kind of lukewarm on a candidate, it's probably a good sign that you're not going to hire that person. And so, we can kind of read between the lines of the feedback form that we got in. And again, with ChatGPT, you can actually dig into the kind of logic and really understand kind of what's going on there. But I think for now, let's just kind of take this recommendation and we'll move forward with Alex. So like, what's the holdup on Alex? Now, I think this is probably going to hallucinate a little bit because we're using the instant version. We don't really have much context in there. So all we know here is, their offer, the last touch was January 18th. And so these are the things that may be driving the decision there. So we know that we made an offer to Alex. It's now January 21st when I'm recording this. So 3 days later, they still haven't responded to the offer. So I think maybe we need to kind of push Alex for an offer. Now, instead of just giving Alex a call straight away, one of the benefits here is we can say, okay, let's role play a call with Alex so I can drive them to a decision. I'm not using best practice in all these prompts here, just kind of freestyling it so that I can kind of cycle through this. But okay, so I'm Alex, and thanks for calling, blah, 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 push to the real blocker. So I might just say, what's holding you back? So now we can kind of go through, and this might be a way if you're kind of preparing to get on a call, you actually have more data, more notes in the ATS. This could be kind of a good way to check and see, okay, before I make this call, what are the kind of things that are like going to come up, and how could I kind of role play this so that I'm better prepared going into that conversation in order to either close the candidate quickly or actually disposition them and get them out of the candidate. So let's end this role play. Alex says comp is the big issue. So let's say we've had that phone call. Should we move ahead? And so this is a decision. This is more of a kind of like framework of like, does compensation actually matter so much in this kind of role? And the argument here is, well, this is a quota-based role. And so increasing the compensation a little bit if they hit quota is actually going to be a big benefit. So maybe now what we want to say is draft an email to the CRO for approval on comp increase. And so again, we'd probably want to go into more details. We're typing these kind of prompts. But what we're doing here is you can see the email app is now loading up. And so this is generating, hi, John, or whomever, needed approval on this. Here's the adjustment, the rationale. So again, this is the framework. Now you can kind of copy this, or you can actually open in the email. So if you already have this connected to your email account, you're going to just get this ready to send. You probably make some tweaks based on what you know about the CRO, or if you actually have this personalized, it's probably going to talk in your voice a little bit more anyway. And so this is how you're starting to kind of tie all the threads together of the different stages in the hiring process and the admin that you would normally have to click between multiple buttons to go through in order to get to a decision. I think this is actually a really good opportunity for an employer branding play where you actually think about candidates that are considering applying to your role. You actually give them kind of case studies and role plays where they can actually go through the process of what it's like to work in your organization, maybe kind of pre-onboarding screeners that would then potentially flag a candidate if they, pass several of the steps initially and express a lot of interest. Maybe there's an option for them to submit their resume that then goes through an accelerated queue, which is then going to give you this kind of accelerated inbound that's going to skip and a lot of the process and actually save you a whole bunch of time. So there's a million different ways that we could go with this, but really I just wanted to give you an overview, and I'm very excited about what this means for the future of TA and HR, but really just app development in general. We saw with the App Store on iPhone how just one small improvement could actually lead to a whole ecosystem. And I think there's a potential for a huge ecosystem to develop here now. And I'm definitely going to be playing around with this for my own kind of personal projects moving forward. But that's it for now. Take care. We'll see you soon.